Hi guys, this is Betsy.
And I'm Anita.
And you are listening to another episode on
Ain't That Some?
Today's guest is one of my really, really good friends. His story is very inspiring and I hope you guys can relate. So please help me welcome my really good friend, Fernando.
Drum roll.
Hey.
Welcome, Fernando. It's so nice to have you here on the show. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here. Both of you, Betsy, Anita. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
He was saying he drove all the way from LA.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. So we're all the way in San Diego, guys. So he drove all the way from LA, which means a lot. Taking time out of your busy day to be here with us, sharing your experience, your life, your struggles, everything, so that, you know, it helps somebody overcome anything they're overcoming. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm huge on relationships, friendships. And I know, like I told Betsy, I support you. And doesn't matter, you know, the time or anything, but if I can be here, I'll be here.
Damn,
and it's an honor to support you, both of you.
He's my really, really true friend.
That is a true friend. That is
so
a
much.
true friend, honestly.
Yes. So are you ready? Because we're going to ask you those very raw questions.
He's like, how raw?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Okay.
So just relax.
Take a deep breath. So the reason I wanted to invite you is because you have told me a little bit about your story and your upbringing, and I think it's amazing how you decided, you know, to search elsewhere besides of what you've been taught when you were little and go after your dream. So my first question is, who is Fernando? Tell us about your roots, your family.
Yeah, so I was born and raised Salinas, and I always say up north, east side of Salinas, because that is the neighborhood where I grew up. So I take a lot of pride because I know that there's a lot of undiscovered talent still there. And so I always like to expose that I'm from east side of Salinas, so that side of town.
Shine some light there.
Yeah, shed some light there. So I was born and raised there. Growing up, I wasn't really a scholar. And now that I'm older, I realize why. It wasn't that I wasn't a scholar. I wasn't interested in certain subjects, or maybe I wasn't attaining my potential to what I had because of the influences, the environment. There were a lot of things that took place that just wasn't exposing me to the, you know,
to your true potential.
And so I grew up, became a father at a young age. I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I became a father.
Oh my gosh, that must have been so
Super
hard.
So I had my first child. I was a sophomore actually in high school. I remember still. Sophomore. Then I stopped going to school because I went to work. So I started working.
Step up the father role.
Up the father role. And even then I still wasn't ready to be a father, but I did what I could when it came to being at that age. So I was a kid having a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what went through your mind once you found out that she was pregnant? Like, did you feel like, damn, my life's over, or anything you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, I think I felt that things were gonna get really complicated, and then because it wasn't that we were forced to be together, but at that point, my parents are super old school from a rancho in Mexico. Her parents are super old school from a rancho in Mexico.
So they were like, you stuck.
Yeah, so it was like, you guys gotta stick it through.
Yeah.
You gotta stick it through.
You gotta stick it through,
And it worked out for a lot of years. We spent together 13 years.
Wow.
Until we got divorced. But it worked out, but it was one of those things that we were kids. We didn't really know what love was. So, you know, we did the best that we can with what we had. Yeah, it was a lot of fear and unsure of what was going to happen. And I didn't even know how to be a father. So,
all this new thing.
All these new things.
Learnings.
So I did that. Never ended up graduating high school. I went back and actually got a diploma after.
The GED.
Yeah, years later. But I tried going to college, and that wasn't my thing again. School just wasn't that for me. I tried doing a grip load of trainings, like courses, trainings, just to get different jobs, just to not have a minimum wage job. Because I've always, up until 5 years ago, I've always had minimum wage jobs. Because I remember I would go to apply somewhere, and they would always be like, well, bring your resume.
Oh, yes.
And when that
like,
would
damn.
and
had a baby at 16.
You're like, how do I write a resume?
Yeah. And it was like, what do I put? There was nothing interesting that I would put. And so I always joke about this, but the most interesting thing that I guess I would put there was bilingual or biliterate. And I would hope,
Like, let's say
that they needed someone that spoke Spanish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was like my oh man, hopefully they need someone that speaks Spanish.
Dude, you want to know something funny? I went to high school, but I didn't graduate high school. I got my diploma also at a continuation high school.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, but I started working really at a young age as well. One of my best friends' newspaper company here in San Diego. So I don't have a problem there. But once I left that job, my resume was empty besides that. So I would always use bilingual.
You're like, let's just pray this helps
I was
me.
like, somebody to speak Spanish, you know? So, and actually that would get me the jobs, bilingual.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember I don't know why, but growing up, I always wanted to work at a bank as a teller. I don't know. I think because they look nice. They look like their job wasn't
professional.
It wasn't hard. It was just taking money, depositing money. And I was always hoped that they would need someone that spoke Spanish, especially because I lived in a neighborhood where it was mostly Hispanic.
Hispanics.
I was like, man, hopefully they need a Hispanic person right now, but never got the job. But
so you always had that kind of instilled in you where you just felt that you were meant for greater.
Yeah.
Right? Because you didn't want to stick to a minimum 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
It sounds like from what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I've had a lot of jobs, and it was because I didn't keep them. Like I would go and work for 3-4 months, and then I hated it, so then I stopped going, and so I continued to switch jobs over and over. And as crazy as it sounds, I always knew that I wanted to do something in business, like own a business of some sort. I just didn't know how, because one, I didn't like going to school. I tried going to community college, and I tried doing a business major, and I think after the first semester I was like, man, I don't know.
This isn't for me.
Same.
And so I was like, man, no, but I felt like I actually want to run a business, and there it was just general ed the first 2 years, and it's like, this has nothing to do with what I want to do.
Wow.
And so I always felt like that.
I'm interrupting real quick. Can you tell me, before we get into like the business side, tell me your upbringing? Like, what did your parents do? You know, where, did it come from Mexico to the US? Like, what's their story?
Yeah, it's a good point. Because it actually plays a huge role into a lot of now and who I am now, and the risk that I was able to take, and the reasons why. But they grew up in Mexico, so born and raised in Mexico. It's crazy because my dad always tells the story, but he says that my mom was 14 at that time, and my dad was 19, and they were from a rancho back in Mexico. So at the time, this was normal, I guess, for the rancho,
The cradle.
Yeah, it's normal.
And,
Same thing happened with my parents.
And now I think about it, because I have a 14-year-old daughter, and so my mom was telling me, like, man, at Alyssa's, my daughter's age, I got married. Like, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, 14. And so they were from the same rancho, and my dad asked her, hey, I'm going to the United States. Do you want to go with me? And that was like their marriage. That was obviously them getting married. They never really got married, but that was their commitment to each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they came from Mexico at a young age, and they touched down right there in Salinas. And they lived there all their life. But for the most part, they have always lived with relatives, brothers, sisters. They've always lived in one household, just to kind of
help each other
out with the financials.
And when they got here to the US, what did they work on? Like,
so it was a lot of agriculture their entire life. In Salinas especially, is a lot of agriculture: strawberry, lettuce, broccoli, a lot of agriculture. So that's what they did for their entire life.
And that's very
hard.
Yeah.
That is so hard.
So
hard. You grew up watching them every single day.
Would you ever go and help them?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So that was, it's very actually normal where we're from, is for an individual in middle school, even high school, for that to be their summer job, to go to
in Salinas.
Yeah, in Salinas, to go and pick strawberries for the summer. Especially if you're underage and you can't get an actual job, then you can go and work at the fields and pick strawberries.
And that's legal?
I don't know if it's legal, but
it's like that's something that would happen.
We would do that.
Yeah,
we would do. We would go, and then they would pay us cash, and we would go work during the summer and for a couple hours, and that was our little money
side job.
Yeah, and then also during the weekends when mom didn't, because we never. I can't remember ever having a babysitter.
No.
Yeah, no. It was either aunt was taking care of us, but not like an actual babysitter. Or if mom couldn't had to work, then she would take us. I remember she would take us to work. Like on Saturday mornings, we'd always go to work with her. So she would wake us up at 4 a.m. I would always smell her cooking her lonche, and then we'd get up, go to the fields, and then we'd stay in the car, me and my cousins, because all my aunts worked together and uncles in the same fields. And I remember we would stay in the trunk and would fall asleep. Yeah. Well, like we had a van.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
We had a van, so we would stay in the back.
Okay.
And then we'd be sleeping there for a couple hours until the sun came up, and then we'd wake up and we'd go help her for a little bit, but we'd stay there most of the day.
In the van.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because back in the day, there was no iPad, no phones, no nothing. Like right now, when I take my kids to work, it's like, here's a phone for each one of you, and here's the iPad. Because they'll be running all over the place. So you guys had to, do, you know.
And I think that was the beauty of it, because I was actually talking to one of my cousins about that, and I was like, man, like, how do we get entertained? And I think it was just imagination. We would either play games or marbles, or we would something.
Oh, the marbles.
Yeah, we would play something.
I used to play the little thing that had like spikes, and you would bounce the ball and you would pick them up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like
yes, like pick up
2,
sticks,
3,
wasn't it? Yeah, you bounce the ball and yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so we'd do that, and yeah, we would just get entertained. But that was I think where I instilled the work ethic, where I really saw what work ethic is. And the values and principles that they lived on, which was to always, work as hard as they can to get their family forward. And
I feel like a lot of times, you see your parents, even if they're sick,
they
get up and they still show up. And that's something that you learn as well, like you said.
My mom still does that, and I'm like, Mom, why are you going to work? And she's like, because I need to be there and somebody needs me. And I was like, but it's instilled in them. It's instilled in them,
yeah.
Just being there, being responsible.
Yeah. So then you would go with them, you would work with them. Did you ever have like any, thoughts through your head, like, this is what I don't want to do, or I don't want to do this, or there has to be something better out there? Yeah, no, definitely. I think I would hate little jobs like that, and hate the fact that I would look around, because I even after I graduated high school, I worked in the fields myself for a couple of years, picking strawberries or the broccoli. And my mom would always tell me, like, man, like you at least know English. Like, you could get a better job. Trust, like, you know what I mean? She believes something greater for you. And I would look around, individuals that were there. And a lot of them, they didn't have a choice. That was the thing. Even if they wanted to go get something greater, they were a lot more limited than we were, being here in the States. Even speaking English, that was really a big thing that could at least get you in the door into places that they potentially couldn't. So I always knew I wanted to do something greater. It was just I think the insecurities of not being a scholar growing up, because I always looked up to the kids like that would get straight A's. Like that was I would admire them, and I still to this day, if I see them, I'll still remember them. The ones that from high school and middle school. You were a straight A student. Yeah, I still know them, and I admire them. And growing up, I would admire them because they would be smart. I thought they were smart. There's something you weren't. Yeah. Well, that's something you always wanted, but you just couldn't. It was just not in you, right? Yeah, and that's how I grew up growing up. And so my way of, instead of trying to be better and learn and get to that level that they were, which was understanding the material, acing the material, getting good grades, my way was just rebelling, which was like, I don't care. I don't care about school. And so I've always did pretty bad in school, D's and F's. And it's okay, don't worry. I did too. It was for that reason, because I was like, I did too. And then I would pretend like I didn't like school, because the people that I was hanging around with, they didn't like school either. They would prefer not to go to school. Ditch. And so and so that was my thing too. I was like, no, I don't like school either. Like I would get praised for getting an F. Like that to me was, like, to my peers around me, you were seeking validation, pretty much, right? And so if I couldn't get a validation from someone from the group that was getting nothing but A's, then let me just get validation from another group that's failing like I am, and maybe that makes me feel a little better. You were just trying to fulfill something that was in you. Yeah. Okay, so then once that part of you, is happening, you grow up, you got pregnant at 14, right? 16. You got pregnant. Sorry. You got pregnant at 16. Then you started all these little jobs. Tell us more about that. Like, what was one of the jobs that, you were in at that moment and you're like, I'm done. Like, there has to be. There's a processing plant in Salinas that I think is one of the biggest ones there, that majority of people work there. I even have, my dad actually works there right now, and still, he's been working there for 18 years. What is it again? It's called Taylor Farms. Taylor Farms. Yeah, okay. So it's a lettuce processing plant. Okay. Wow. And so my dad's been working there for 18 years,
cousins work there. It's like a family thing where like, yeah, come here. You know, you get good benefits.
Yeah.
Pay's not too bad. It's a little bit over minimum wage. So I remember my dad got me in there because he has seniority, and so he got me a job there, and I was working there, and I would remember I would literally look at the clock every single like minute that passed by, and I was like, shit. And it was like 10, 12-hour shifts there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's 10, 12-hour shifts.
Felt like forever.
Mm-hmm. And I think I did that for almost a year, for like a whole season, because it's a seasonal job.
Mm-hmm.
And I can recall, I was like, man, I hated like that job, you know, and I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, because I would see even people like my dad who'd been doing it for 18 years. And I was like, no, I couldn't.
It was just never in you.
And you know, there's nothing bad with, you know, what your dad's doing, because that's just,
no,
you know, it's better than what he was doing, right? So it's like a step up. And then I feel like when you have that first generation that comes to the U.S., like their main goal is just to make it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because for the second generation that is born here, it's like, okay, look at me. You need to be doing better than me.
Exactly.
And then your kids are going to do better than you. And that's
always
and I think that's like the cycle in the Hispanic family, right? There's that one person that took the risk, came to the U.S., and they got any job just to make it. But because they wanted the best for you, it's like, this is what I am right now. And I am proud of being, you know, my job and everything. And I'm secure. But you need to do better than me.
Exactly.
And your kids need to do better than you. So, you know.
Yeah, and I think that you bring a really good point, because that's something that I think sometimes it gets misrepresented.
It does.
When it comes to when somebody says, oh, well, I would never want to do that job, or I worked there and I hated that job. And I think sometimes they may rub people the wrong way, but it has nothing to do with that, because the way, even you explained it perfectly, the way that I see it is, back home where my dad was from, the ranch, they get paid about $100 a week in U.S. money. And this is hard labor, maybe even harder labor work than he's doing now. $100 a week. So if he made that that commitment to come in to the U.S., to the States, and now he's getting paid, let's say, $800 a week, that is a huge increase to what he was getting paid before. So that's a win. You know, he put us in a good position where, how about now, if we can find somewhere where we can get paid $8,000 a week instead of $800.
Exactly.
And then my kids find somewhere where they can get paid X amount, you know, and it's just, it's an
cycle.
increase. It's not the fact that job is no good. It's just that it was a good increase from where he came from.
Exactly. It's
a
good step.
And I think the part here is always seeking growth.
Yes.
That is I think that is the whole key behind it, when sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, but it's really always seeking growth. Because there's always opportunities.
Always. There's always opportunities. Always. And I think that's, you know, you said it perfectly, correctly, when it's, you know, people shouldn't look at those jobs, you know, like they're jobs that, you know, maybe that's a job that you don't want to do, but you understand, like, these people, this is the only thing they could do.
Exactly.
And they took it, you know, and they do it happy. I bet you your dad's happy. Your mom's happy.
Because
it's better than what they were doing. And it's like the growth, right? And it's like bettering the family, bettering the generations to get where, you know, one day he's going to be like, wow, look at my granddaughter. Look at my son, you know, and he's going to know, and he's going to feel good because all the sacrifices that he did produced that, you know? So that's amazing. So now that we talked about that, once you start shifting, right, and you start seeing that there's more, how does Fernando go from working at the processing plant to coming to LA?
So at the time, right before it happened, everything happened during the pandemic, and I think that was the time where like a lot of us, you know, we were either working from home or got laid off, and that gave me time to just really think. And at the time, actually, I was working at Sprint. I had been there about a year. I've been in the wireless business before for about 4 years before that, so I was very familiar with it. But during the pandemic, we stopped, you know, working at the actual store, and we're working from home. And I've always wanted to do real estate, something with real estate or mortgages, because I felt like that was a good career path for me. Because one, I knew sales already. Two, I like working with people, and I love. And three, I like the idea of just growing a business, like growing a team, a business, and being able to, you know, help other individuals, maybe in certain situations that I am, guide them into, hey, you can go into business for yourself. I love that idea. That is actually what excites me the most.
I love that.
And I like the idea of because look, to me, a home is where I have so many memories with my kids, like movie nights and where we have dinner. So it's a memorable place. So to be able to be one that can at least take the journey with a family to that place where they're going to create their own memory, then that brings fulfillment too. So the
beautiful.
finances are there, the fulfillment part is there, and the being able to grow a business is there. So I thought it's a good business to be in. And I remember one time my daughter likes to watch these reality shows on Netflix. I don't know what it's called, but it's a reality show of real estate.
Sunset?
Something like that.
Sunset.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that. It's one of those where and my daughter always knew that I wanted to do real estate. And so at the time we were having a conversation, and I'm huge on telling her, Mija, you can be whatever you want when you grow up.
How old is your daughter?
14.
14, okay.
Yeah. And I always thought that you can be whatever you want when you grow up. Just know that it's going to take a lot of hard work. And maybe backtracking here, but she's a student. But I always tell her, hey, the A's are just going to maybe get you in the door, but just know that if you're always going to have to work, you're the hardest worker in the room, no matter what. So I always instill that in her. And then she hit me back with like, well, what did you want to be when you grew up, Dad? And I was like, wow, that's a good question. And I was like, well, I always wanted to do real estate. And then she's like, you should, Dad. Look. Aww. And she watches that show. So she's like, you're young, you're good looking. You dress nice. I think you can do it, Dad.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So that was the moment that it sparked in me. I was like, man, you know what? I should. And then I remember the next day, I had just opened up my Instagram and I got connected with Andy in some shape or form. I forgot how. But I sent him a DM and I knew he was doing real estate. So I was like, hey, man. And I still have the DM, but it pretty much just said, hey, man, like, I know you don't know me, but I love building teams. I noticed you're in real estate. Hopefully one day we can connect. That was it. And I don't think he responded, and we left it at that. And so I think 2 months later, then he responded back, and we ended up meeting up in Salinas. He told me like what courses I need to take, what licenses I need to get, and that started the whole journey. It was it was actually April of 2019. Was it pandemic? 2020. Okay. April of 2020. That was when.
That's when your life pretty much
I would say the
changed.
journey started.
So you took the test to become a real estate agent or a mortgage lender?
So I did both because brokers, we need both. But yeah, I took both tests, and I was completed around that same year, September. That's when, because I told Andy, I was like, hey man, you're not gonna hear from me back until I have what I need, and if an opportunity comes, then we'll work together. And so then I sent him a text again in September. I was like, hey man, I'm ready. If I can get the opportunity.
But see, I love the fact that once your daughter kind of, pushed that in you, you took the initiative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I feel like a lot of people, they think about what they want to do. They have people telling them you should do this, but they're afraid to reach out. You didn't, you reached out to Andy, you put yourself out there. And I think that's huge because you would have never sent that DM. Yeah. You could have gone discouraged, never pursued it. So I think that's huge.
Well, the fact that you even listen to your daughter.
Exactly.
Because if my daughter, at that time she's 14 now, so she was like 12.
Yeah, 12.
So my 12-year-old daughter goes like, Mom, you should do it. Be like, yeah, babe, you're right. And I probably would have left it alone. Yeah. But you actually listened to her and you were like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So
I always say she's always been I will say that my cheerleader. So if I look back all the way till I was 16, and sometimes I became a dad at a young age. And there's a lot that happened in between, but now I see why God gave me a daughter at such a young age, because I like her wisdom and her, like, even at such a young age, and her words to me and her encouragement, they help. Yeah. You know what I mean? They help a lot, and she's very supportive, and that's also beautiful. Helps, because I always like to say a quote, which is like, if what you love loves you back, I think that's enough fuel for you to continue on the journey of whatever you're going. I love that. You know what I mean? Because if what you love loves you back, then that at least brings you fulfillment, and it gives you that fuel to keep going. I love that.
I've never heard of that, but I love that. Yeah.
Because I think at times, especially on a journey like this or in entrepreneurship, it's, it's very easy to get sidetracked. And very, very easy to get sidetracked. And it's very easy to put off the things that you do love and you may get love from everybody else. 10,000 friends on Instagram, you get a lot of love, but what you really, really do love isn't loving you back. Then at some point, nothing. It really means nothing, Yeah. And I always say, like, whose validation do you need? And to me, is that it can, for every individual, be different. But to me, my kids, like, them saying like that, I'm proud of you. That is the president of the United States could tell me that, and that'll mean more to me because it comes from them,
Yeah. Okay, so that's beautiful.
That's so beautiful.
That's really nice. Now, Fernando takes a test.
Mm-hmm.
He passes the test. Now it's time to come to LA.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I even before that happened, I think in my mind, I was already planning to move. Like, because I knew that one of the things that I did and I early on knew was that if I wanted to really pursue this at the potential, at the height that I wanted it to build it, it couldn't be where I was at. And I think I tell a lot of individuals that is sometimes that is going to be the case. Not for everybody.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, not for everybody, but a lot of the times that'll be the case because it's that comfort zone, and that area may not allow you to get all the resources, information that you need to, to cut the learning curve when it comes to learning the business and even growing the business. And so I knew early on that was going to have to be the move, was moving to LA. And so the next challenge was one, how was I going to move? 2, where was I going to move? 3, like the finances part. So at the time I wasn't working anymore. We went furloughed, and then we were working from home, but then after a couple months they said, you know what, they cut us off.
Done.
And so we stopped working.
That
was a lot of
hard.
people.
Well, yeah, but
During
I'm
the
saying
pandemic?
like him having to move when we're having a pandemic, everybody's losing your job, and like you said, thinking about finances, where all of this, and the fact that you did it's just wow.
And that's I think that one thing I've always asked God is for strength, and I think that's the time that He gave me the most guidance and more strength, because I can look back and I would probably not even recommend somebody in that situation to move, because people have asked me and they're like, man, like this is what I want to do, and the one thing is, when you have kids already, it's already hard as it is.
And your marriage too, because you were still together with.
Not yet. Next time.
Not yet. Okay.
No more. No.
Oh, you guys were not together. No. So while you're trying to find yourself, that was done.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did that play a toll into what you were trying to become now?
With
with your separation or your divorce.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that taught me a lesson in itself, because a lot of it was immaturity with that marriage, because we were together 13 years.
You guys grew up together.
Yeah. And when we separated, it's gonna be 5 years already, this year. Wow. So 5 years ago. And so we're together 13 years, grew up together, but it was a lot of immaturity, a lot of selfishness. That's definitely a huge one. I thought that just
from your part or her part?
Mine. Oh yeah, I take accountability for 100% of it. I can say that I will say that I was blessed with having an amazing mother for my kids when it comes to that. I just, sometimes it's like anything, if you can have something good but not know how to value it, so like you can have the best car ever, but if you don't take care of it, if you don't put the right oil, the right fuel, if you don't show love to it, if you don't take it to the car wash, make it look nice, at some point it ain't gonna be as good as it was. Yeah. And so that was the situation with me. I was just young, and a huge amount of selfishness, and I thought that just bringing home the bread, bringing home the money, putting a roof over their head, making sure that they were taken care of. I thought that meant being a good husband and a good father.
Which in the Hispanic community is done a lot.
Yeah.
The man goes, works, he provides, and the wife is at home, and that's it.
Yeah.
But to marriage, there's so much more to marriage. Yeah. It's a whole job in itself,
Is.
And if you do not know how to take care of your significant other, at some point, it's going to start falling apart.
Oh, yeah. And it's crazy because I'm a true believer. It'll either fall apart or you might stay together, but knowing that it's not the true happiness.
Yeah.
How did you know it was not your true happiness? Or how did she know? Because I don't know the whole dynamic, but how did you guys both know how to you know what? No matter what we do, we're just, I can't give you what you want and you can't give me what I want.
Yeah. I think it was too many times of just messing up, just being unfaithful, lies. It was too much of that. And I think it gets to a point where there's so much you can handle, and then from that point on, there is no way I can trust this person. And I think not being able to trust someone, it's hard to live with them.
It's so
and then
hard.
I knew that, and it was the crazy part. This is another thing that I learned now in my life, was that we just didn't have the same love language. Like, she wanted time, affection. She wanted that type of love. And to me, I just cared about providing, like she would rather me earn half of what I earn, but be at home more. And And to me, it was like, no, I want to earn more, even if it takes being less home. So
I
was
get what
we
you're
were separate, way separate terms.
Yeah.
To me, it was I want to earn more, even if it had to sacrifice being home. Her was like, no, like I want you to be home more, even if we have to cut down on some bills, so that you can spend more time with us and the kids. So
She
we're
just
on way
wanted
separate terms.
that.
Yeah. And so now it's crazy because now that she's remarried and she found someone that's exactly like that, I can even when I go and pick up the kids and I see it in her face, she's happy, man. And that makes me happy because as a man, if I know that the mother of my kids is happy, then I know my kids are happy too because they're in a happy place at home.
Wow.
But that is the biggest thing is that you can even see it in someone's face. Yeah.
Wow, that's so hard.
Yeah. And then that took a lot to like, and sometimes it's hard for people to even understand because I've came to the realization that like, and I tell people sometimes you just gotta take it in the chin and know that, man, I'm really not the man for this person. Oof. You know, and that's a hard one, especially if you guys already have kids, if you've been married for X amount of years. It's hard to really look in the mirror and be like, I am not the man for this woman.
Just to accept it.
Yeah, to accept it. To either accept it and move on or accept it and
dwell on it.
How did you overcome that? Like
know,
seeing her. That's
oh, yeah, that's.
Oh, my.
I think especially the first year, that's the hardest thing.
So was she first started dating?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she started dating first. After about a year, almost 2 years, then she started dating. And so it was hard, I think, because even though I didn't have feelings for her, like wanting to get back, but it was just, I don't know, I guess the man inside you. Yeah, the
just
pride.
Knowing that she's with somebody else and it's
that's the
not
pride
you.
of a man. I say that a lot. It's like the pride of a man, like, man, somebody else is with my kid's mom, you know?
Yeah.
It's that pride, but it was like, and it's that selfishness still, which is crazy, but it's selfishness. It's like, no, like, let her be happy. Like, we all deserve to be happy. And I think it took a lot to come to that realization, but it was a lot just, that's when I started the whole self-development and meditating and
focusing on
me, self-love. I think that is really, really huge when it comes to dealing with issues like that, is you really do have to love yourself to understand that, like, if you can love someone else that is in love with not you, but somebody else, but that makes them happy.
And that's what I was going to say. You can tell because a lot of times, a lot of people, especially, you know, they've been together for so long and just seeing that person, it's like it hurts you and you just want to, you know, make their life hell. But the fact that, you know, you said, I see her happy and it makes me happy. It takes a lot, you know, especially for being 13 years.
Yeah. And it's crazy because even sometimes, especially because we're Hispanic community, old school. And so I don't know why they come to the realization that if you separate, it's like, that's it. You guys hate each other. Like, no se hablan.
Yeah.
But us, we're like, no, like we can literally go to dinner, be in the same room and chit chat, and I can speak to her husband and I can speak to her. Like I would even go as far as saying like we're amazing friends together.
Wow.
And you thank them because we had a conversation. You're like, like I tell him like, thank you for being.
And I think that took a lot of I think as a man we're prideful, but I realized one thing. My daughter's 14, so she knows if somebody's being good to her. My son, he's gonna be 5 this year, but kids when they're small, if they don't like somebody, they won't go with them. Like that's how little kids are. And if they do, then they're very attached to them, and that's how they grow some sort of love to them. And so I realized that my kids, you know, really are attached to him, and he treats them well from, you know, what I know. And so I've gone up to him and be like, hey man, I appreciate you being good to my kids, because I do realize that we share custody, me and my kid's mom. And so no matter whether I like it or not, she's still gonna be there. And him being a good man and taking care of my kids, and as a man I have to appreciate that because I love my kids. And if my kids are in good hands, and you know, I can put my pride aside and be like, hey, thank you.
That takes a lot.
That's amazing though. That's amazing because like you said, the Hispanic community, like, you know, we don't talk anymore. Ya no se hablan. But for my family, you know, my parents got divorced, and my mom and my dad are really good friends. My mom was there when my dad was having his baby with his wife at the hospital. So we were, you know, they did it for us. You know, they went to that level and became friends because they knew that whatever happened between them, it was going to go to us, my brother and I. And, you know, my mom still talks wonderful things about her mother-in-law, you know. She's really good friends with my aunt. Like, the family is still a family, whether she's with somebody else and he's with somebody else. But at the end of the day, we're all family.
Exactly.
And I think, and like even you that you're older now, because I always thought about that. I can't, and I've always been huge on, I can't put myself in my daughter's shoe, because I grew up with both parents. My kid's mom grew up with both parents. I don't know what it's like to have to go back and forth to mom's house, to dad's house, to have a stepdad, to have a stepmom. Like, I don't know what that's like.
Yeah. It's really hard.
That's what I'm saying. And so my biggest thing was like, I want to make it as comfortable, and tension and drama is just gonna add more fuel to then. I don't know how she's feeling. Like, I could only either assume or ask her, and she'll tell me what she wants to tell me. But deep inside her, I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I know that it's not easy, because I mean, I can't imagine it. And so it's good coming from a standpoint that is the biggest reason why I think me and my kid's mom sat down and we're like, we need to figure this out. Because we need to do it for the kids. We need to make sure that they're in a good environment, that no matter the situation that they're in, we can't go back and fix it. But what are we going to do moving forward for that they can continue to be in a good environment?
And I love that you guys did that, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to separate one from the other. They don't know how to, make it to the point where it's healthy for the kids. Someone probably doesn't want to move on, and the other one's already moving on, and that just causes toxicity and tension, and it affects the kid. But you were man enough to be like, she's happy, she moved on, and as long as she's happy, the kids are happy, and that's all that matters. Even though you took probably the L in the relationship, but now it was for your kids, and now you're in a better place too, because you're happy.
Yeah, and that's,
and you learn how to love yourself in the process.
And I've always said that, and that's why I'm a huge believer that even sometimes we go through hard times or things don't go the way we want them, and I always look back at that, because if that would have never happened, then I would have never been here, been given this opportunity, been able to grow my own business. Like, I would have never, not have even the mature. Like, even if I would have had the opportunity, be in real estate back then, I just wouldn't have the maturity, the discipline. I would have wasted the opportunity.
It wasn't just your time.
Yeah. So it was. I'm a huge believer that everything does happen for a reason.
And
like, it really does.
We always talk about that, and we always say that whatever happens is because it's the right time. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen right away. It's just it wasn't your time at that moment. It will happen. Just be patient with the process.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that happened, and now Fernando's moving to LA.
That was a crazy roller coaster. But I look back, and it was a good experience. But when I came, I was initially going to come for a week. So I was going to come and shadow other individuals that were already in the business. I just wanted to learn. So I was going to come and shadow for a week. And I was going to stay at my brother's, where he lives in Hollywood. But he has a 1-bedroom, and it's him and his wife. So I didn't want to be too much of a bother. So I told him, just let me sleep in your couch for a week. I'm just going to come and shadow. And I don't know, it was maybe the high buildings and the lights, or it was just something about LA, and they just move differently. Like, they move with urgency, and they're always in the like, fast pace, and like wanting to learn and grow. And it's just a completely different environment, especially from where I'm from, back home in Salinas. It's more mellow, chill. It's just, you go to work, you come home at 5, you eat dinner, and you just lay down and watch TV type of thing.
So it was something different.
Yeah. And so it was completely different. And I said, you know what? Fuck it, man. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to stay. I'm not going back no more. And I remember, I told my mom, because at the time I was living with my mom in Salinas. She's like, well, what are you going to, like, what do you mean? What are you going to do? Where are you going to stay? And you don't have no money and all this stuff. And I was like, man, Mom, I don't know. I know this is just the right move. She's like, well, what about the kids? Like, and I was like, fuck, you're right. Like, shit. I'm like, what about the kid? I'm like, shit, what am I? And so all these things started, and instead of, and this is where I find the strength of God. Like, instead of just being like, man, you know what? You're right. It's not the right time. I started like coming up with issues, and now I circle all the way back to my childhood. If only I used that in school, which was, if I got a bad grade, is sat down and be like, okay, how can I improve this grade from a D to an A? What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? What do I need to learn? What am I not understanding? If I would just do that, then I would have been in that A class, and that plus, A plus group. But I didn't. But now that's exactly what I did. I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do? And so I started just troubleshooting. And long story short, I ended up staying in different, like, people's couches for about a month. Andy let me sleep in his couch, and one of my boys, Johnny's, my brother's couch too. So I did that for about a month, maybe even almost 2 months, until I finally was able to get an apartment at least. But during that time, I was only speaking to the kids on FaceTime, and I would go to Bakersfield and spend a couple hours with them and then come back. But I wouldn't spend the usual time that I would with them because I didn't have nowhere stable, and I didn't want to just bring them and be couch surfing.
Yeah.
So that was hard. That was the most hardest thing for me emotionally than the financial part, because the financial part I could just deal with it. Take $20, maybe just stretch it out throughout the week.
Couple noodles.
Yeah, a couple noodles or something, and so that was it. So that was a move, and then luckily early on I started getting good momentum, and so I did start getting business fairly quickly, and started learning the business extremely quickly as well too. And I knew that early on I wanted to invest everything into learning the business a lot quicker and getting coaching and mentorship, because I wanted to cut the learning curve as much as I can, because I knew it was a learning game. It was like, how quickly can you learn not only the mortgage business and the real estate business, but how quickly can you learn to scale the business, and how can you learn from others that have been in the business for 10 years and they can advise you what mistakes you shouldn't do, because if you do this, you're going to waste about 6 months when you could have done this instead. And so I spent my entire finances
picking brains,
paying to pick brains, and paying for coaching, paying for mentorship, hiring an assistant, because I knew the things that somebody else could do that would allow me to spend more time on continue to grow the business.
Yeah.
And so even though I was making good money, I was making sure that it was invested elsewhere. There was no Gucci, no Louis Vuitton, none of that.
You had to limit yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
It was 99-cent McDonald's menu. Jack in the Box.
Well, see, that's the things that we have to, you sacrifice. We have to sacrifice in order to be where you want to be, right? And that's what you did, sacrificing, and man, it takes a lot, because sometimes we want to have the best of both worlds, but you don't realize that there's something has to take an L, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that.
Yeah.
And then you also say a story that you were, when you got here, isn't that when your car got towed?
That was
tell them that.
Yeah.
part.
So at the time I still love hiking. I just don't do it as much as I used to, because time wise, but I used to go hiking every day, and LA I hate the parking there. And so there was one time where I was going to go hiking, and there was this area where you could park, but it did say no parking and it said tow, but there was cars there. So I assumed that maybe they really don't tow it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, F it, I'm going to park there. So I parked there. I went for my hike, came back, and my car was gone. And I was like, no. And the thing,
were all the other cars gone too, or
just all the other cars.
Oh,
and there was like 2 other guys there too, just standing. I'm like, and I asked them, like, did you guys' car get towed? And they're like, yeah. I was like, no, don't tell me that.
Damn, I would have been that tow truck driver.
And that was
a good paycheck.
And at the time, I still have it on my phone, but I still remember. I think I had about $429 or something like that. And I called the tow truck, and I asked them, and then they tell me, oh, it's gonna be this amount of money, and they charged me not only for not having a front plate, for parking on the wrong place, but for the tow as well too. So it was like 3 different tickets. So it ended up being a little over the $430 that I had in my account. And I was like, no, man. I was like, no. And I was even sincerely begging. I was like, please, like, is there a way you can like maybe charge me less? It's literally been 15 minutes. You guys just got my car. Like, when I was arriving to the tow truck,
they were watching you guys.
They were just barely bringing the car. And so I was like, man. And so she's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't do it. So I was like, fuck. So I was like, okay, slide my car, see if it passes, because I knew I didn't have that much. I think I was off by like $20, $30, and to my surprise, it did pass. And so even though I was negative like $30, it passed. But then that was the moment where I was like, man, this is not the shit. Like, that was supposed to last me for a whole month, and I was like, shit, man. And I just took a deep breath, and I was like, you know what, this is what I knew that I had. Like, even me, like, I caught myself like, man, I'm growing, because I was like, man, you know what, it's just a learning lesson. That just tells me that I shouldn't park there no more, because if I do park there, my car's gonna get towed.
I should read the fine print.
And I was like, there's nothing I can do. So even if I dwell on it, I get mad,
it's not gonna save it.
It's nothing I can do. The money's gone. And so I remember that was the first time in a long time that I had ever texted my sister. I'm like, hey sis, can I borrow $100? I was like, I know, I'll get them back to you as soon as I can. And so she was nice enough. She Zelled me $100, and I made that stretch it out the whole month until I got the next paycheck. But yeah, that was there's a lot of things. Like, even there was one time too where I think one of my boys that works with us, he had invited me to go eat lunch, and I didn't, at the time, I still hadn't got paid for a transaction. And I was like, damn. I was hoping that he would like, since he told me like, hey, let's go eat,
that he would pay.
And I was like, man, I really hope. And I told my boy right after, like months later, I told him the situation. He's like, really? And I was like, yeah, man.
And did he pay?
Yeah. And so we went, and then we ordered, and I was like, I went first, and then he went, and I was behind him, and I was just kind of pretending like I was gonna take out my wallet. And then he was like, nah, man, I got you. And I was like, you sure, bro? I was like, I could pay if you want. He's like, nah, I got you. Knowing that I have money, he's like, yeah.
You're like, damn,
and so he ended up paying,
no.
and I was like, oh shit, man, thank you. And so there's moments like that, and even though there were, you know, it's funny now we can look back, and it's but it is a struggle.
Yeah.
But see, at the moment, those are moments that motivate you, that you use where you're like, I never want to be here again.
Yeah.
I have to change something so I don't ever feel this way again, right?
And I think there's two ways to look at it, because it's one, and I think it goes through everybody. It's one that, man, like I really need to get a second job, or this really might not be for me, you know, or especially if you have the circle that was initially against you making the move, and now has something to look back to go to and be like, you see, I told you. You know, like you don't want those people.
That's true.
But luckily, and that's one of the reasons why I knew I couldn't stay in the same circle that I had, was because I knew I was gonna get that. They were gonna be like, bro, like what are you like? Go get a job. Yeah. But I had a completely different circle, and that's why it motivated me to move to LA, because the circle that I had was more like, bro, don't worry, like I went through that too. Yeah. Trust me. 1 year from now, you're going to be laughing. And at the time, I didn't think so. But they were like, no, trust me, bro. Like 1 year later from now, you're going to be looking back, and you're going to be joking about times like this.
5 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
No, but not even.
Yeah. And so we're here now.
Last year,
And so we're here now, you know, and it is true. But there's two different ways to look at it. It's either going to unmotivate you, or it's going to set that inspiration to be like, yeah, no, like this is just temporary. Because I would always tell myself that this is just temporary. Yeah. Even when I was sleeping couches, I was like, this is just temporary.
And then it's funny because you have to put yourself in that mentality, right? Yeah. This is just temporary. This is just temporary. Because if you go, damn, I should have not left. Damn, maybe they were right. Because those, I'm pretty sure that went through your head too. And you're like, this is just temporary. So changing the way we say things, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And then I'm reading, I don't know what book I'm reading, but it's just changing the way you say, if you don't have money, it's like, it's a financial bump. I'm going to be okay. Yeah. You know, not saying I'm broke or I don't have money for it. Like changing your the way you speak, right? Oh, yeah. Because that's very important, especially when it comes to you wanting to do stuff. Yeah. And manifesting affirmations, right?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And you guys are wondering probably, you know, why did it take them a month to make, you know, a paycheck? Well, in real estate, when you go into escrow, you don't get paid right away. So you got to be working with the client as a real estate agent. Got to be showing them a bunch of houses, submitting offers. In this crazy market, we could submit up to 10, 12 offers, and they still don't get accepted. And then you don't get paid till probably between 21 and 30 days after it closed. So once we hand keys to the client, we get paid probably a week later. So you're talking about going about 30 days without a paycheck?
Yeah, 30, 45 even sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. So that's where he says, I had to wait a month and I had to stretch it out for a month because we don't get paid right away. Yeah. We get paid when the deal closes. Yeah. And we've done all this work and we still don't get paid. Sometimes clients go somewhere else. Yeah. You know?
Oh, so that's one of the things that you have to stretch it. And there's a good point, and not to make the story quick, but I think it can help because even when you said you do have to put yourself in that mentality of like, man, this is just temporary, like it's okay. Right before I actually moved to LA, I had gotten a job offer in Bakersfield. So my kids live in Bakersfield, and my biggest goal was always to move back to Bakersfield so I can be closer to my kids, because I was living in Salinas with mom. It's 3 hours away, so I would have to drive 3 hours to pick up my kids, drive 3 hours back, spend a couple of days with them, and then drive 3 hours to go take them, drive 3 hours back. So it was about 12 hours round trip in total. And my biggest goal was always to move back, be closer to them so that I can not have to do the drive and spend more time with them. And right before I moved to LA, they had called me from a job offer at Verizon, which was going to pay me, I think it was a salary of $80,000 a year, which is for Bakersfield area. It's good. Pretty good income. And I remember I thought about that offer for about 2-3 days. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to take it. As much as that's what I wanted. That's what I always prayed for, which was go back and, you know, live in the same city as my kids. And I said, no, I think this is the right opportunity. So that's when I sparked to move to LA. And so there was times where I'd be like, fuck, man, should I have taken that opportunity? And I could have just been, because 80,000, like even 6 figures in some cases, I think us and my kids could live comfortably for the most part. You know, a lot of our internal family can live comfortably, But I think when the purpose becomes greater than just the money part, I think that can move you forward and that can inspire bigger moves.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And now here you are, Fernando, the lender.
So you became a lender.
He became a lender.
Okay.
So Fernando and I met through a transaction.
Oh, yeah.
I was the listing agent on one of the properties, and he was working with one of our other really good friends.
Yeah.
She was a buyer's agent, and I remember when you called me. Do you remember that call? You want to talk about it?
I think I called because the deposit or something was gonna be a day late, and I was trying to be nice. I was like, hey, just give you a quick update. Like, you know, deposit might be a little late from our borrowers. She's like, we'll be there tomorrow. Because no. Okay, but it was I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact, but she was like.
I was like, okay, so I was like, you have 3 days. I was like, you're past your 3 days. If I don't see a deposit by tomorrow, I was like, the house is going back on the market.
Yeah. And I was like,
yeah, you don't play with Betsy.
And then he goes, no, trust me, it's gonna go. I was like, okay, I'm just letting you know, like, it's gonna go back.
Just warning
I have
you.
a backup
There's a little
buyer.
more attitude in it though. But
I believe you.
But I was like, damn. I was like, okay. But then, so that's how we initially met, and then we ended up.
And then you were late with the appraisal.
Yeah.
Hey, te cayó gorda la Betsy, and then you're like, I met her,
like,
alright, she's cool.
I was like, this girl's. No, but and then the transaction, we went through the transaction, and then we actually went to closing, and that's where we met in person, and it was just like a connection. Like, I'm huge on, I think, relationships, even if whether it's somebody that like a business relationship, personal relationship. I think, especially in the business and entrepreneurship, it really is. It pays to have good relationships.
It really does. You learn so much.
Yeah, and that's
from each
the
other.
biggest thing on me.
Yeah, we became really, really good friends.
Yeah.
Really fast too.
Yeah.
Like we connected really fast, and then we just, when I needed like advice, I would go to him because I feel like he was able to relate with me when I was having like relationship issues. I would be like, Fernando, this is going on, and he's like, calm down. So for me, I surround myself with people that I could relate to, and that people that are not just going to tell me what I want to hear, but you're going to call me out on my,
Exactly.
And I think you were one of those person, and that's why I gravitated to you really fast.
That's nice.
I've always said that. I think I've gone through some crazy stuff and a lot of things, but it's helped in the way of, I think, just personal life wisdom. So even I tell people, even if I'm 30 years old, but I feel like I've gone through divorce.
Well, you started at such a young age becoming a parent. It's a whole, it's a drastic change. Yeah. And along with that comes obstacles and learning experiences that a lot of people are barely, at age 30, they're barely, going to be parents and they don't know what to expect. So, I feel like sometimes I always say like age is nothing but a number. Yeah. It's the experiences that truly shape you who you are,
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
So now you're moving to San Diego, from LA to San Diego. Yeah. Wow. And how do you think that move's gonna go? Like, what are your plans?
You know what?
You're just moving up north, more north.
I think the one thing, this is where I relate with people who have a family, have kids. It's not easy to chase opportunities sometimes, and that's what I think a lot of the times people get stressed out. They're like, man, well, you don't understand. I have kids. I have, and I do understand, because even though I'm not married and live with somebody, I have kids and I co-parent, and that makes it sometimes even a little bit more tougher, because I have to take that in consideration. I have to take my schedule in consideration. I have to take their mother's schedule into consideration, and I have to take my kids' schedule into so it's a lot of consideration. But I just think when you really want something, you'll find a way. Like, I'm already planning, okay, we move close in downtown San Diego, but it has to be close to an airport, because I don't want to drive. I want to be able to fly, and
saves you time.
So I it's just, you gotta just strategize and think. But even the move, I feel exactly the same way when I moved to LA from Salinas. It was nervous, excitement, but I knew it was a great opportunity. I feel exactly the same.
So you feel like
crazy.
It's
even though I feel like I'm nervous, because it's an opportunity. I'm excited because I know that's gonna be open new doors, and I'm I'm grateful that I even get to have that opportunity to even just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna move to San Diego next year. So it's a good opportunity to just come. And I love the weather here, man.
It's amazing,
especially comparing it down to LA.
Yeah,
to San Diego.
San Diego's better.
But see, all the feelings you're feeling, is feelings of growth.
Yeah,
you know, that's exactly what you need to feel in order to grow.
And I love also when it comes to parenting. I actually this whole year is based off what I see from you as a parent, and I'm the mom, right? Mm-hmm. But I love the way that you said something one time on your story that if I don't follow my schedule, let's say I don't wake up to work out at a certain time, and then my kids wake up and I decide to go work out when my kids are up, now I not only it's hard for me to work out, but I'm taking time away from them. Yeah. So structuring yourself is very important, so you don't take time away from them.
Yeah,
that's being considerate.
Yeah, and I think co-parenting has taught me a lot of that about time and appreciating more the value of the time than the quality. I mean the quantity
over quality.
Yeah, quality. And it's for that reason, because I realized that if I only have, let's say, 4 days with them, and I add those hours up, that's how many hours I have with them during that week. And so if I can take still time for myself during the time that they're sleeping, which they're still going to sleep, and I can do my thing, I can focus on me, get my workout in, get my reading, do what I have to do, a little bit of work. If I can do that while they're asleep, and not have to take time away from them when they're awake, because the worst thing I hate is sometimes things have to be done. Unfortunately, there is times where, you know, you have to mix it up a little bit, but if it happens too often, that's my little check in the mirror and be like, hey man, you gotta fix your schedule. Something's not right. And so that's the biggest motivation for me, is knowing that if I don't do it,
you're taking that
I'm
time
taking time away from them,
kids.
and then there's no fault to them.
Yeah, exactly.
They want that time.
So I want you to know that this year I based it off that. So thank you, because I'm always calling him. He's like, I don't know how you do it. Like, you're doing real estate, you got the kids. Like I could barely handle mine. I don't know how you do it. Yeah. But everything you say, like, I take, with a grain of salt. Like, okay, like he has a point. Like,
that's true. No, you're an amazing father. You see, in that, like you said, you learned selfishness, right? Yeah. You had to learn how to put yourself and everything, to the side to be able to enjoy your kids, give them the attention they need, because you're being considerate of their feelings, everything they're going through, because it's not easy for them either, So that's amazing. You're an amazing father.
Thank you.
Just want you to know that.
Thank you. Appreciate
inspire us.
You're inspiring us.
And I think because I think I just refuse to have to sacrifice a time with them to grow the business to the level that I want to. Like, I hate to. And that's why I think I'm huge on knowing who to take advice from and what area of life.
Pick and choose.
Because as long as they do align with your morals and principles and values, cool. But if you're asking parenting advice from an individual who runs $1 million company but doesn't have kids, the advice that he gives you might generate a lot of wealth, but might not be the best advice as far as how to still keep a good relationship with your kids.
Ooh,
on the other hand, you can ask advice from an individual who's an amazing father. He may not be making the financial wealth that you want, but he can give you some really good tips on how to be a great dad, how to really, listen to the kids, how to be a great parent. And so I can take advice from him. Might not be financial advice, but I might be parenting advice. Somebody else in the spiritual world that, maybe I want to get closer to God, I can ask advice from him. So it's picking and choosing. And that's why I always tell people, you don't have to have just one mentor or coach. It has to be picking and choosing who. And so I think for me, I just want to be that dad or businessman that found the code or the ability to grow the business and still keep a good relationship with their kids and not let that affect it.
Just that balance.
The communication be there. And luckily, it's to this point, it's been great. I think it's just the communication.
It's working for you.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is so huge. And I love that, because a lot of times we get so consumed and you know what, this is who I want to be. You get so focused on, like you said, if he's a millionaire, but if he's just not that father, then it doesn't align with you. It's just, like you said, I think that's huge.
Yeah, especially
and it blew
I think
my mind.
social media. I mean, it makes it so easy to be like, man, like to envy people. To envy people on like, man, I want to be like that person. And it's easy. I think if you scroll through it, it can happen very easily because, you know, it can be portrayed easily. Mm-hmm. I mean, social media, that's a whole nother subject. It's good, but then it can also be a little, you know, it could be a little deceiving. Yeah. But I think that's a good example of that. It really does, you know, deceive more than it is. So I'm more into like, what is an individual's values, principles, what's their marriage like, what is the relationship with their kids like. That'll tell me a lot. The money part will come after, but if I want to know that first. What's your marriage like? What's the relationship with your kids?
So you were drilling me when you became my friend.
you know what I mean? Like that's important to me because that in itself, I think it's harder. Like a great relationship with your kids, to raise really good kids with morals and principles, I really think it's harder than to make $1 billion in this world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think making money is not hard. Now that I see it, it's not hard as we used to think growing up. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think raising a good family and having a good marriage, being actually happy, having a good relationship with your kids. That's hard. Like your kids can actually look up to you and really mean like, hey dad, I love you, you're my hero. Like for your kids to really feel like that, I think that's harder to earn than to earn $1 million.
True. You know what I mean? Mic drop. That was all right. Yeah. Mic drop. Yeah. Wow. Mic drop.
That was amazing. So this is Fernando's podcast.
Let's see. No, for sure. Follow Fernando.
Do you want to tell them how they can follow you and all that good stuff?
But before you do say that, you know, everybody that's listening to us. Yeah. So what is something that you can say to our audience, you know, that can help them overcome the generational curse. Yes. Yeah. I think definitely, like I said, Instagram is a good platform because that's where I was able to connect with individuals who are doing something that I wanted to do. But I would say, that it really becomes to your circle, like who you're surrounded with, the individuals that you're taking advice from, the individuals that you spend the most time with. That'll at least give you an idea as to where you're headed to. So I would say that is find a circle, an environment that is going to support your dreams, that is going to, you know, add some guidance to the goals and dreams that you want, and you know, give you the ability and support to follow that. That's really the key. And then work on. I'm huge on reading because I think there's a lot you can get from books, a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and so I'm huge on that. And I always say reading, and then get to know yourself. Like really sit, get to know yourself. Do a self-assessment, know what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you cry, what makes you furious. Know yourself, because then that'll give you an idea as to how to control your emotions when you're, you know, decide to take your journey. Oh, that's huge.
You know, it's a big key.
Well said, friend.
So like self-development books and stuff.
Oh yeah. I geek out on that because it's helped me so much. And anybody that I've studied that has some great success in whatever area of life, it's one of the things that was very common, which was like they read. You know, whatever it is that you read, it's depending on what you want. Like I'm huge on even reading about child development on parenting, because I don't know how to, because I would be a fool if I really think that I know how to raise a 14-year-old. Like I've never had a 14-year-old, exactly. So why wouldn't I want to learn you know, how to, at least from psychologists or professionals. Yep.
So just basically learning your priorities. Oh yeah. You know, list your priorities and then go ahead on learning on them.
What book would you recommend to an audience that's trying you know, to cover
that you'd say was like life-changing?
Or exactly.
Oh yeah. I think a great book actually right now that I think can help anybody to start creating those healthy habits to what you want to become is Atomic Habits.
I'm reading that already.
Yeah. What is it? Atomic Habits?
Atomic Habits.
Oh. Yeah.
It's really good.
Because the whole concept of that book is really, first, get to know yourself. Find out who you want to be, who you want to become. Like, paint that picture in your head. Write it down. Who does Fernando want to be? Who does Betsy? Who does Anita want to be? Like, everything in all aspects of life. And then work your way backward and start making those habits that are going to either add a point to that or reduce a point. Because every action we make every day either adds a point to you, that person, or it reduces a point. Like, if I want to be a sober person and I go to the bar and I have a drink, that's -1.
It takes up a point.
But if I go to the bar and I have a glass of water, it's +1. And then I go the next day, it's a +1. and it goes on, and it becomes a habit. And sooner or later, that habit is actually just your lifestyle.
Yeah.
You're now the guy that goes to the bar and gets a glass of water, because that's what you come accustomed to.
I love that. I'm gonna
get
San Diego,
you're not gonna get a glass of water, but
she's like, you're hanging out. Remember your circle, eh?
So that's
we know you
rude.
Now we know who he's not gonna be calling.
Just kidding. I don't drink. That was good.
Only sometimes.
I know.
That'd be a good one for that. And then a parenting one that I like is How to Talk to Kids So They Will Listen.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a great book. It goes into parenting. It's all ages actually too.
Really?
But it's more about the way we speak to them and the way that we communicate with them. That's the whole moral of it. But it's a great book as well too.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Definitely.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you.
And please say now where
where do we follow you?
Yeah, so Instagram is mostly the platform that I use. So it's at the Fernando Barron. So TheFernandoBarron.
Yeah, so make sure you guys follow him on IG. Yeah, because you post a lot of your life and your everyday life, right?
And he's also a lender. So if you guys are looking to purchase a home, and you guys need a Spanish-speaking lender?
Yeah. Right over
Fernando,
here. Yeah. He's bilingual in his
resume. Bilingual. Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Bilingual. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you.
I appreciate it. It is a complete honor and pleasure. And it's amazing what you both are doing. It really is.
Thank you.
It's admiring. And I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode, and we will see you on the next one
episode.
on Ain't That Some Shit?